The Black Sea stopped being a buffer zone and became a trigger, a place where one decision, one missile, and one unmanned aircraft abruptly redrew the invisible lines separating restraint from direct confrontation. What happened on January 2, 2026 may go down as one of those moments that quietly but decisively altered the trajectory of the standoff between Russia and the North Atlantic Alliance, even if many preferred not to say it out loud. The events of that day carry the weight of a potential turning point in the confrontation between Russia and NATO. It began with the downing of a U.S. strategic drone over the Black Sea, continued with the introduction of radically new rules for the use of force along Russia's borders, and culminated in massive strikes against military shipments destined for the Ukrainian army. To understand why this matters so deeply, we need to unpack what exactly happened and what consequences may now unfold for every actor involved in this conflict, from military planners to civilians far removed from the front lines. Reflection question: when everyone points at the same villain, doesn't that feel suspicious? Write it in the comments. And while you're at it, don't forget to give this video a like. It really helps the channel. Your comments don't just sit there, they guide what we create. On the afternoon of January 2nd, a Russian Su-35S fighter jet shot down a NATO-owned RQ-4 Global Hawk reconnaissance drone over the waters of the Black Sea. The drone had been conducting surveillance at an altitude of roughly 20 kilometers, a height long considered safe for this kind of high-value strategic technology. Until that moment, few believed that a reconnaissance asset costing around $130 million could be physically destroyed at such altitude. Yet Russian forces employed an R-37 air-to-air missile, which successfully struck the target. This marked the first time in history that Russia physically destroyed a strategic reconnaissance asset of the alliance in what is still officially referred to as peacetime, if the current reality can even be described that way. In previous years, similar incidents usually ended with diplomatic protest notes or electronic warfare measures aimed at disrupting control systems. This time, the script was fundamentally different. What pushed events in this direction? To answer that, we have to rewind to the previous day. On January 1st, a tragedy occurred in the Ukrainian village of Yorky. A drone strike killed 27 civilians, including children. This incident triggered a harsh and immediate reaction from the Russian military leadership. Defense Minister Andrei Blisov signed a directive that radically altered the rules of engagement near critical facilities and zones of military operations. Under the new order, local commanders were granted the authority to immediately destroy any aerial object approaching strategic areas, without prior coordination with higher command and regardless of the object's nationality. In practical terms, this meant a shift away from a policy of restraint and diplomatic protest toward one of immediate physical elimination of potential threats. The doctrine could be summed up bluntly: shoot first, ask questions later. That doctrine was put into practice almost immediately. Russia's Podselnuk over-the-horizon radar system, designed to detect air and sea targets at long distances, identified the presence of the American drone in the Black Sea region. The command made the decision to intercept. The drone was conducting a reconnaissance mission, gathering intelligence on Russian military installations and troop movements. Under the previous rules, this situation might have ended with a diplomatic démarche or an attempt to suppress the drone's control systems through electronic warfare. This time, a different path was chosen. The Su-35S closed into missile launch range and fired. Minutes later, a $130 million drone was reduced to burning debris sinking into the Black Sea. For NATO, the shock was profound. These platforms had been considered virtually untouchable at such altitudes. Now, it became clear that the era of consequence-free reconnaissance flights near Russia's borders was over. And this realization raises an uncomfortable question. If assets once deemed invulnerable can be destroyed so decisively, what other assumptions about safety and dominance might also be outdated? Diplomatic reactions followed swiftly, though mostly behind closed doors. A phone call took place between U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Charles Brown and Russian Defense Minister Belousov. According to available information, the American side urged moderation and de-escalation, seeking explanations and assurances that such incidents would not be repeated. The Russian response was unequivocal. Belousov stated clearly that NATO reconnaissance assets must be immediately withdrawn from areas adjacent to Russia's borders and zones of military operations. He warned that any future attempts at reconnaissance in these regions would be suppressed by force, without warning and regardless of who owned the technology. This was, in effect, an ultimatum with no room for ambiguous interpretation. What surprised many observers was not Moscow's firmness, but Washington's silence. Neither the United States nor NATO headquarters issued loud public statements. There were no emergency press briefings, no threats of retaliation, no dramatic rhetoric. That silence speaks volumes. It suggests that the Western side is not prepared for a direct military confrontation with Russia and prefers to avoid further escalation, even at the cost of losing expensive equipment and tacitly acknowledging a new reality in the region. But the drone incident was only part of the story. On the same day, Russian armed forces carried out a series of precision strikes against railway infrastructure inside Ukraine. The targets were trains carrying military cargo destined for the Ukrainian army. According to available data, 4 convoys were destroyed, transporting weapons and ammunition worth approximately $2 billion. Among the destroyed cargo were artillery shells of various calibers, anti-air missiles for Patriot systems, Storm Shadow and ATACMS cruise missiles, and rockets for multiple launch rocket systems. All of these weapons had been supplied by Western countries and were intended to significantly strengthen Ukraine's combat capabilities at the front. Now, they will never reach their destination. These strikes demonstrate a clear shift in Russian strategy toward deep interdiction aimed at undermining enemy logistics long before military cargo reaches combat zones. Instead of waiting for these weapons to appear on the battlefield and confronting them during active operations, Russian forces are destroying supplies on distant approaches. This greatly complicates the task of equipping the Ukrainian army with modern weapons and ammunition. The attacks on railway convoys highlight how increasingly vulnerable Ukraine's transport infrastructure has become, and how delivering military aid from NATO countries now requires ever greater efforts to protect and conceal shipments. What do you think about Russia's decision to strike Western-supplied weapons long before they reach the front, instead of confronting them directly in combat zones? Give us your opinion in the comment box below. Western countries will now be forced to look for alternative delivery routes or significantly strengthen the protection of transport hubs and railway lines, which will demand additional resources and time. Some may shift to road transport, others may divide shipments into smaller batches delivered along multiple routes to reduce the risk of losing entire consignments at once. All of this makes the process of military assistance more complex, more expensive, and far less predictable. The events of January 2nd also underscore how significantly Russia has strengthened its presence in the Black Sea and the airspace above it. Following the destruction of the drone, Russian forces deployed additional aviation units, air defense systems, electronic warfare assets, and reconnaissance capabilities. Restricted zones were established in which any unauthorized NATO activity is considered a potential threat and may be suppressed by military means. In effect, the Black Sea has become an area where Russia exercises full situational control and dictates the rules of behavior to all other participants. The days when NATO reconnaissance aircraft and drones could patrol freely near Russia's coastline, gathering intelligence without real risk, are over. Every flight now carries a genuine danger of being shot down, and every reconnaissance mission requires careful risk assessment and acceptance of possible losses. So what does all this mean for the future? First, it is clear that the escalation threshold between Russia and NATO has dropped sharply. Where both sides once tried to avoid direct clashes, relying on diplomatic protests or indirect actions, Russia is now demonstrating a willingness to use force immediately and without warning. This creates a new reality in which any military or reconnaissance activity near Russian borders can result in the loss of expensive equipment and potentially human lives. Western countries will have to reassess how they conduct reconnaissance and evaluate the risks of such operations. Drones, once considered ideal tools due to their altitude and range, have proven vulnerable. This means either abandoning flights in high-risk zones, developing new technical solutions to protect reconnaissance assets, or accepting losses as part of operational planning. For Ukraine, the situation grows even more complicated. The destruction of large batches of Western weapons before they even reach the front means the army is deprived of critically important resources. Air defense systems, long-range missiles, artillery ammunition, these are all essential for maintaining defensive capabilities and conducting operations. If Russian forces systematically destroy military cargo en route, shortages will inevitably emerge within Ukrainian units. Western countries will then face a difficult choice: increase supply volumes to compensate for losses, or fundamentally change delivery logistics, both of which require time and additional funding. At the diplomatic level, January 2nd highlights how fragile dialogue between Russia and the West has become. The public silence from the United States and NATO following the drone's destruction suggests that Western governments see no effective response that would not risk further escalation. Publicly acknowledging the incident would force some form of reaction, and that reaction could drag all sides toward a more dangerous confrontation. Hence the choice of silence and behind-the-scenes negotiations. Yet this does not resolve the core issue: the absence of mutual understanding and mechanisms to prevent similar incidents in the future. Without agreed rules of behavior in contested zones, the risk of new clashes will only grow. Do you believe this new Russian doctrine of immediate force makes accidental escalation more likely, or does it actually deter further provocations? Give us your opinion in the comment box below. Another critical aspect is the broader implication of Russia's shift in rules of engagement. Granting local commanders authority to use weapons without centralized coordination ensures rapid response but also reduces predictability. In high-tempo military environments, where decisions are made in minutes, such delegation can be militarily justified. At the same time, it increases the risk of misinterpretation. A field commander might perceive a benign action as a threat or fail to recognize a genuine threat in time. This creates additional escalation risks and the possibility of accidental incidents spiraling out of control. The drone incident also forces a hard look at the economics of modern reconnaissance. A $130 million drone was destroyed by a missile costing many times less. This raises serious questions about the cost-effectiveness of deploying expensive reconnaissance assets in high-risk zones. Western countries may need to rethink their approaches, investing more heavily in alternative intelligence gathering methods such as space-based reconnaissance, smaller and less visible drones, or intelligence networks deployed on Allied territory at safer distances from the conflict zone. One way or another, the age of impunity for large strategic drones near Russian borders has ended, demanding adaptation in reconnaissance strategies. International reaction so far has been restrained. Most countries have avoided public comment, confining themselves to closed diplomatic channels. Any public statement risks being interpreted as taking sides, with potentially undesirable consequences. Many governments are interested in de-escalation and do not want to fuel further deterioration. Behind the scenes, however, intense negotiations are underway to understand how far Russia is prepared to go in defending its interests and what steps Western countries can take to avoid new incidents. These talks may last weeks or even months, and their outcome remains uncertain. For ordinary citizens following these developments, it is important to understand that what is happening carries long-term implications for regional security. The Black Sea has always been a vital transport artery and an area of economic interest for many countries. It is now increasingly militarized, raising risks for both navigation and civil aviation. While military incidents do not directly target civilian vessels or aircraft, heightened military activity increases the danger of misidentification, accidental impacts, and movement restrictions. All of this can spill over into the civilian sector, making it crucial for all parties to minimize risks to non-military actors in the region. The systematic destruction of weapons shipments en route to the front could also shape the broader course of military operations. If Ukrainian forces face sustained shortages of ammunition and equipment, their ability to conduct operations and hold positions may be compromised. At the same time, Russian forces gain greater freedom of action, knowing their adversary is constrained by limited resources. This can alter the balance of power across different sectors of the front and influence the conflict's future trajectory. Western planners will have to factor this into their military aid strategies, seeking ways to improve delivery efficiency while minimizing losses during transport. In conclusion, the events of January 2, 2026 represent far more than isolated incidents. The destruction of a U.S. strategic drone, the introduction of new Russian rules for the use of force along its borders, and the massive strikes against military cargo all signal that the conflict has entered a new phase. Old rules no longer apply, and new ones are being forged in real time, through action rather than negotiation. The winners, for now, are Russia's military planners, who have demonstrated both capability and resolve, reshaping the operational environment to their advantage. The losers extend beyond Ukraine's strained armed forces to include civilians and regional stability itself. International media outlets from Reuters to the Financial Times have long warned that unchecked escalation risks miscalculation, and January 2nd may be remembered as the moment those warnings became tangible reality. The situation remains extremely tense and unpredictable, with each new day carrying the potential for fresh incidents. Whether common sense and diplomacy can prevail over momentum and mistrust remains one of the defining questions of this geopolitical moment. Now it's your turn. If this analysis helped you see the deeper consequences behind the headlines, leave a comment with your perspective. Are we witnessing the start of a new balance of power in the Black Sea, or the early signs of something far more dangerous? Make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss our next report. We're following the story as it unfolds, day by day. Activate notifications to stay ahead, and remember, you can also become a channel member to support this project directly. If you believe independent geopolitical analysis matters, your support through Patreon or PayPal, linked in the description, truly makes the difference.